Back to the Ryder Cup then. Let's speak to the former captain, Paul McGinley, on the appointment of Luke Donald as the European captain for 2023. Paul, very good afternoon to you. He was discussed a lot, wasn't he, when Henrik Stenson was initially given the job. So any great surprise that Luke Donald takes the captain's role?
I don't think there's much surprise, no. He was very close to getting it before Henrik. Obviously, the decision went Henrik's way in that instance, and he was the natural replacement when Henrik stepped away.
We've touched on it before we came to you, Paul. His superb, almost faultless record as a player, 4 Ryder Cup victories, 10.5 points out of 15. Does that have any impact on how he'll captain the team?
Yeah, I mean, he's had an amazing record, hasn't he, as a player? He's, of course, it will have an influence, and it's why we have, players of stature in Ryder Cups in that place. They've been there and they've kind of walked the walk. They've been part of successes and maybe parts of losses as well. And I think he will have learned a lot certainly from his vice captaincy role last year rather, under Padraig Harrington over in Whistling Straits, where we lost by such a big margin. But I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that have been made.
Yeah, do you think that helps of having both sides of the coin, both as a player and as a vice captain under Thomas Bjorn, the great success, but knowing what it feels like to be beaten, and as you said, well beaten in Wisconsin last year?
Oh, absolutely. We do learn a lot from our losses, particularly in this game of golf, where you spend most of your time losing. It's very rare that you would win. If you'd win 2 or 3 times a season, it's an amazing season, and not many people get the chance to do that. So you spend most of your time losing, and in those instances when you don't come out on top, you review what you did and what you would have done differently, and use that as a learning experience. And captaincy is no different. And certainly my own experience is that you learn a lot from and watch, and it doesn't have to be so much involved, but observing what went on. And it mightn't just be your losses, it might be American losses as well too. I say, well, you know what, they got that wrong, or they got this wrong, and you might look at it in a different way and through a different lens in that regard. So of course, losing is a big part of creating a template that's going to go forward in terms of what you're going to use and what kind of ideas you're going to come up with in terms of being a captain, hopefully a successful one at that.
Talking of being a successful captain, then here's a question I'm sure you've been asked countless times since Gleneagles in 2014. What's the secret?
It's not cut and thrust, very simple ABC. Communication is a huge part of it. I believe tactics. I know not everybody agrees on it, but I think tactics have a huge part to play in it. Not just in the pairings that you put out, but also how you put them out in terms of order in the day, create a bit of momentum. I'm a great believer in momentum, as I believe good performances at the top of the order can have a big influence on the guys down the bottom. So there's a number of factors that go into it, and I guess the main key is communication. But first and foremost, the first job that Luke will have on hand is putting together a formula and a qualification process as to how the team is going to be picked. How many picks is he going to go for? How many off the DP World Tour are going to be able to qualify, and also how many from the world rankings are going to qualify? So that's probably his foremost thoughts, as well as putting together who his vice captains are going to be. So we've still got quite a bit of runway to go between now and the Ryder Cup, which is what for us is in place.
Paul, we'll try and persevere with another question. The line isn't great, but we'll carry on. There was an interesting little jibe from Henrik Stenson over the course of the weekend, talking about putting in a captain's performance at that live event in Bedminster. In contrast, part of Luke Donald's statement says, "Some of my best experiences in golf have been in the Ryder Cup, and I wouldn't swap those for anything." Do you think that's a little bit of a response to what Henrik Stenson had to say yesterday?
Maybe so, yeah. Henrik has chosen his own pathway. He had a contract with the European Tour that he wouldn't be part of this rival tour. He's quite clearly broke that to go and play with Liv. And, he's hit the ground running in that regard. A huge check yesterday, and he's going to make a lot of money over that decision. But, quite clearly he broke the contract that he had with the European Tour in order to promote a rival league, which is what's happening. So that's the way it is. We move on. Luke is now the captain, and we move on with that very much in mind, that Luke is the guy in place. And, he's got a couple of vice captains in place that were under Henrik, and I believe they're going to be staying in place as well. So, it's as is, and we move on. And luckily there's a good 14 months between now and when the Ryder Cup will be played. So lots of time to get his ideas in place. And most importantly, the qualification process, as I say, hasn't started yet. So once that starts and up and running, it'll really feel like the Ryder Cup is not too far away.
It's interesting there that you mention the length of time that Luke Donald has to get his ideas in place and qualification. Is there a concern that within the next 14 months there could be great players from both of those sides who might be taking the route that many have already and going down the Live Golf Series and therefore not being eligible to play? Yeah,
I mean, that's a worry, and we have to wait pending the court case as to what that's going to happen or not. A lot of these guys are falling out of the top 50 in the world at the moment, and they're not playing on the PGA Tour, so it's very hard for them to get points. And there's a lot of water to flow under the bridge between now and the Ryder Cup, and one of the questions that has to be asked is the eligibility of those players that have chosen to go over and play in the Live Tour, and a lot of it will be pending what the courts decide as to whether they can still remain members of the DP World Tour and earn points and potentially be Ryder Cup players. So a lot of that will be resolved away from a golf course, and we'll just have to kind of wait and see and deal with that when it comes up.
There are obviously, so far out, so many unknowns at the moment in terms of who will be playing for both Europe and America come Rome 2023. But at the moment, would you say that America, if we look at it as if it was starting tomorrow, would be strong favourites?
I think so. I think they generally are strong favourites. But there's no doubt, again, it looking like from listening to what Jack Johnson has to say, the American captain, and, Zach has made it quite clear that players who've gone to Live will not be part of his team. So I think that weakens them. You look at guys like Bryson and Koepka, Patrick Reed, big names from the American side who will not be part of that team. That can all be good for Europe. We need to see some young guys coming through. We still have a backbone of a very, very strong team there. The guys that have chosen to go to Live, maybe Casey, maybe Sergio, Poulter, Lee Westwood, a lot of them are kind of in the twilight of their careers, and I don't know if they were going to make another Ryder Cup anyway. But the point is, we need to have some young players coming through, and that's what we're missing more than anything in Europe at the moment. We still have the backbone of the Hovlands and the McIlroys and the John Rahms very much at the forefront in Europe, but we certainly would like to see 3 or 4 of the young guys flowering and flourishing, particularly when it comes to the international stage, and that is very much around major championships and earning points in order to be on that team, because you do need that injection of youth, and that's certainly what we're looking towards in Europe.